The app Clew, Clew, is an app that people who are blind or visually impaired can use to create different routes from point A to point B. The app has been available on iOS for quite a few years now, but they are working on developing a new and improved app that will utilize AI to make mapping better and easier. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the A11y Podcast, where we deep dive into technology and accessibility. I'm Carrie from Carrie on Accessibility, and you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, your Amazon Echo devices, and more. Today, I'll be sharing an interview with somebody developing an app for navigation. There's been this running theme of navigation and mobility. It hasn't really been intentional, but it's definitely interesting. For the past couple of episodes, there's been a big focus on physical products, but today we are going to be talking about an app. Like I mentioned, there's an app, Clew, that has been around for a couple of years, even before Microsoft and Seeing AI and their sound beacons existed. This was a thing with your camera and some of the sensors on the phone. It was able to map out routes, but you could only make routes from point to point, and it could also work backwards. But what they're working on now is so much more interesting for me because it's going to use AI and it's hopefully going to make mapping easier without having to use all this 3D mapping technology, which could mean that it's less accurate, but there's a much less barrier to actually make accessible wayfinding. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you guys do too. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about all of this mobility, navigation, apps and products that are coming out and being developed. A lot of people are trying to make solutions. Are they working? What do you think is the answer? What do you think a viable solution is? Do you think we need one? Or are the tools we have already enough? Or we definitely need a lot more progress in this area? Let me know, share your thoughts. Also, if you're interested in this type of content, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. If you'd like to support the channel and what I do here, consider becoming a YouTube or Patreon member. You can also check out the Carrie on Accessibility Amazon store. The link would be amazon.com/shop/Carrie on Accessibility. It's also linked down in the description. I'll be sharing some of my thoughts at the end of the interview and just some of my high-level thoughts on all this technology that's being developed. Without further ado, let me roll the interview and I will meet you on the other side. Thank you so much, Paul, for agreeing to be on this interview with me. I'm really excited about this. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
All right, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here as well. So my name is Paul Ruvolo. I'm a professor of computer science at Olin College of Engineering, and I've been working in the area of assistive technology for my entire career at Olin, and specifically related to navigation and indoor mobility. It's my big area. So yeah, really excited to talk about all that with you.
Awesome. I find that not many people know about the app that you've been heading for a while now called Clew. And now, is it still available in the App Store? And if so, what does it currently do?
Sure. Yeah, so Clew, and that's Clew, is an app that we developed. It first was on the App Store quite a while back in 2017. And the original purpose was to allow you to record a path with your smartphone. So suppose you were trying to, navigate to a certain area indoors, you want to be able to return with guidance from the application later. So maybe you have a sighted guide that you travel with, but then you want to be independent to get out of the place. So that was our original use case for it. It uses the camera on the phone and other sensors to record the motion, and then you can kind of play it back in reverse. We built on that over time by adding support for recording and saving paths. So you can save a path indoors and then navigate it again and again with automated, speech, sound effects, and also haptic feedback. And so we kept kind of building on that foundation and, created things like, better tutorials and improve the accuracy over time. So it still does that original kind of basic purpose of recording routes and allowing you to navigate them again and again. So that's available in the App Store. We still have a lot of people using that app on kind of a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm. And it is free, right? Correct?
It is free. It's free. So that's another thing is, we want to make our technology available for free to the end user. Has always been one of our big principles.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons why I really respect all the work that you guys have been doing. And I know you guys have been working closely with the blind and visually impaired community. And that's definitely something that not all organizations do. And I really like that about you guys. So tell us about the new project that you're working on or what you're doing moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it was about a couple of years ago, we saw some opportunities to like build on the model that we done with Clew, which there were a couple of things that we thought we could improve about it. So one of the things was allowing support for outdoor navigation, specifically focusing on what's called the last mile challenge. How do you get to the building? How do you get through the door precisely and get into the environment? So we've been working on addressing that challenge. Also allowing for moving from the idea of like routes indoors to whole maps. So instead of just having like, a route from point A to point B and maybe point B to point C and maybe point A to point C, and all the routes are sort of independent of each other, we're moving to be able to map full spaces so you can navigate between any kind of part of the environment you want to. So between any pair of rooms, say. And then the other thing is sharing. So, of course, like recording routes for yourself, like there may be some cases that people would use that. And we did hear from a lot of our users that they would use that in like a hotel. Say, if you checked into a hotel, you went to navigate to your room independently, you might record a route there. Or if there was like a building that didn't have a lot of good like landmarks for navigation, it could be a good like supplement. But what people really wanted from our experience was to be able to just go to places and have them already be mapped and navigable. So that's what we've been focusing a lot with our new project. And so our sort of working title for the product is going to be called Navishare. So the idea of like creating these maps that can be shared with other people in the community and navigated by sort of people that didn't do the original mapping. And our system is interesting because it only requires a phone to do the mapping. So it's something that's really accessible and can really like scale up to like lots of different environments.
Yeah. So some of the current navigation solutions that are out there require things like beacons or 3D mapping of the whole space, which requires specific equipment. And so this would only use a phone, which I think is really cool because, a smartphone's supposed to be able to do everything, right?
Yeah, it's a magical technology. Yeah.
I guess one of my questions is when you say share the route, would that be like how I can share videos on YouTube and it's publicly available to everybody? Or would that be, oh, I want to share this route with like my sister, so I share it specifically with her?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're really trying to move towards like the YouTube model. So like being available to everyone. I think there's a lot of, important questions we have to kind of think about on that journey around like, trust and vetting and quality control and those types of things. So probably like in early releases, it'll have functions to allow like, friends and family to kind of like share maps or people that are more trusted. But then we'll be building features for vetting and quality control so that we could share with like a wide group of folks and people can have confidence that the maps and the routes are accurate and easy to follow. But yeah, it would be like you would show up at a building and it would be like, okay, there's these like, 10 destinations inside this building had been mapped. You figure out which place you want to go to. You scan your phone around outside of the building and figures out where you are, and then it guides you into the building into your destination. That's sort of
Mm-hmm.
the overall kind of the user journey of what we'd want it to be doing in the end.
I really love this idea of putting this in the hands of the users and the people around them instead of companies, or only companies, because, well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, companies aren't always willing to pay, and also it's hard to keep up or upkeep to
Yes.
maintain that. Another reason is the fact that there's so many solutions currently for indoor navigation, or, well, maybe not so many is the correct word, but there are different apps, and you never know which app has what. And
Yeah.
so let me pull up Lazarillo, let me check there. Let me pull up Good Maps, let me check there. Let me look at, like, right here, and let me check there. Maybe one of these have it, and there's no Google search for, okay, here's the destination, what has it? It just like when you're looking for a movie, Google search can tell you, like, is it available on Netflix or Amazon Prime, things like that. And
Yeah.
I love the idea of putting it in the hands of people instead of just companies. And now it'd be cool if it could be both. So you could
Mm.
go with, like, a company specifically, right? And maybe they have their own map, but then people, like, add on to it, or make their, like, oh, this company didn't update it for like 2 years, and here's, like,
Yeah.
an updated version, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying, because I think that's one of the challenges happens is like indoor spaces do change over time, and
Hmm.
the names of things change, the layout of things changes. So yeah, like you said, being able to have the people that are closest to the space in the space most often be able to directly update the map, add on to it, I think is really important. So
I mean, every time I go into Harris Teeter, it's like everything feels like it's changed.
yeah, yeah, and so you really need
Things like that, yeah.
you need a solution that can
Hmm.
adapt to that. So that's what we've really been targeting, as like something that would basically always we've always said, like, we want the system to be accessible to sort of the average app user, like not just like a centralized kind of like mapping service or something like that, and also accessible to people who are blind as well to do the mapping. So that's another big thing we've also been focusing on, is making sure it's not just like this company that may employ a lot of sighted people to do the mapping, and then the blind people are like recipients of it. We want to like make it so everybody can contribute and benefit
Hmm.
from it.
How are you moving forward, and what has influenced your approach for
Yeah,
navigation apps?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess just to go back a little bit in the
Hmm.
history of the project. So when I first started out, there was like really no good like mainstream devices for doing any of this stuff, and we were kind of like making up our own stuff as we went along. As we went, we were able to make a good amount of progress, as the iPhone and became a platform for doing this kind of like high precision mapping and navigation. We were able to create Clew, and then the app that I was mentioning, Navishare. We've also been able to create that as well. Not available yet publicly, but is available via like test flight if folks are interested. Um, but one thing that I've been getting grants along the way. We've been supported by the Peabody Foundation, the National Science Foundation, but I have realized that there is a need to get some more resources for the project. So how do we bring in some money to help with additional research and development? And also, there's a lot of functions to creating apps that have to do with maintenance or publicizing it or tech support or just general improvements you want to make over time. And so what I'm really focused on now are like, what are the ways we could actually bring in some more resources to make this app better and really realize its full potential while still making it free for the end user. So that's really like the kind of puzzle that I'm trying to solve, is like, what are the ways we could make this kind of a win-win, and still make it easily available to everybody, but also realize that like resources are needed to improve it and make it
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
useful. Yeah.
I think for a lot of end users, they don't realize how much actually goes on in developing and designing, even if it's just an app, as some
Right.
people like to say. It's not a physical product, but there's a lot that needs to be done. So,
Yeah.
do you currently have any ideas, or I guess, like, high level thoughts on how you will monetize and
Yeah.
how to keep it self-supporting.
Yeah, definitely. We have a bunch of different ideas. So we're in this program right now with the National Science Foundation where we're trying to understand the viability of these different approaches. I think there's a few, and these are like things that other companies are doing as well. So there's charge the venue to do the mapping. That's like one idea. So it's like the Good Maps model, or right here. So the venue pays. There's also like don't have an app, have a device. So create some sort of device around what you're doing, and that enables like other sources of funds to pay for a device. What we're really hoping to do is like work closely with various like state agencies, like commissions for the blind, to try to understand how the technology we have created could align with like what they're trying to do, which is typically support people in living high quality lives and attaining employment and things of that nature. So those are like kind of the different areas we're investigating, which is quite a few. But our hope is by the end of this program we're in, we'll have a clear sense of what that direction looks like, and we'll have a great way to kind of go after like the next set of resources to make it a reality. So we're really committed to finding a way to do it that doesn't involve charging the end user. I think that would be the one thing to underscore, is that we really think that like this technology, like sort of, accessible wayfinding and mobility is like so important that we don't want to lock it behind, an expensive price for an app or something along those lines.
Gotcha. So I want to rewind a little bit and tell us a little bit more about how the tech actually works, how
Sure.
it maps and how you record routes and
Yeah.
make it into the experience of an actual user either using or mapping.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology we're using is doing, I would call it visual mapping, or sometimes it's called visual inertial mapping. So you're using the camera to capture imagery of an environment, and also using the motion sensors that are on your phone. So like all phones have things like an accelerometer, so you can tell when you tilt the phone different directions, it'll like change the layout of the screen, and it can tell how the phone is rotating and things like that. So the phone can figure out how it's like kind of moving through space, and then the camera is like capturing images. So this is like a very like technical thing. But then in terms of what the user is doing, so if you wanted to say create a route from like the front door of a building, say, you would take the phone and you would tap record. You would move the phone around to capture some images of the environment. And then that would create like a visual map. So there'd be a bunch of features. Maybe there's some signage on the front door. Maybe there's like something about the stairs that lead into the building. Maybe there's just something about something on the walls, just different furniture. All these types of things are sort of all incorporated into this visual map. Then that's saved, and then with our system Navishare, you then can create a path from that location to somewhere in the building. So you might walk to another area of the building, say there's like a conference room or a classroom or something, or a clinic of some type, and then you would make a second kind of map there. And so you'd have a kind of a starting map, then you'd have a path, and then you'd have an ending map. And all of that is saved in our system. And then when you want to navigate it again, you just take out your phone and you kind of move your phone around, and the phone is sort of matching the scenery that it's seeing right now to what was originally recorded by the user when they made that initial visual map. And so once it figures out that there's a match, then it knows exactly where you're standing relative to the path that was recorded, and then you can get directions to navigate. So it might say, turn around and, go, 10 feet and you'll be on the route. And then it will say, go straight. And it gives you sort of the step-by-step as you go.
What about for maps that have multiple points?
So what we're doing there is you sort of build it up. So you would create your initial, like say you have the start outside the building, you make another one at like the clinic. Then you might say, all right, I'm going to make another path from the clinic to like the bathroom. And then I make another. So you kind of just like keep building up this network of paths. And as you add these different paths, then it enables you to kind of stitch the paths together to create longer routes, or even like shortcuts that like combine multiple segments from different paths together.
So it will be smart enough to actually do that without
Yeah.
make specific paths each time.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was one of the big things
Okay.
with Clew. We realized it was like if you had like 50 places and you wanted to navigate between all pairs, you have to record, many routes. But now
Mhm.
it's smart enough to kind of combine different path segments together. So that's been one of the big advantages of our current system. And we've managed to scale it up to buildings that have, hundreds of like locations to start and navigation at and connecting all those things together.
That would be so cool. I recently went to a new children's museum, and it's with my son, of course they don't have any accessible
Mm,
navigation solutions, and I'm just like, okay, I guess we'll just walk around and figure it out and
yeah.
explore. And I was just sitting there and thinking, I would love if either I could map or somebody else could map like this space, and I could just share it with people who want to go there, because I live in a pretty small city with I just don't feel that the company would necessarily pay for an accessible solution. And
Yeah.
so I would love something like that.
Yeah, and this is exactly, I think, the kind of like use cases we're trying to serve is like the ones where,
Yes, please.
yeah, exactly. Like, because there's some places like, I don't know where we are, we're in Boston area and they're doing a process to like purchase a wayfinding solution for like the subway system around here. And so there's like certain areas where, they'll like, there's enough of a mandate to think about accessibility and there's enough like kind of
Mhm.
like money to put towards the challenge. But we firmly believe that like, there's so many other places people go that are not just the, get me to work or those types of things. So we really want a solution that can like handle those other cases, which we think are actually like the vast majority of cases,
Mhm.
not the outliers. Yeah. So I love your
Yeah.
example of the museum. Seems like a really great one and one that we would love to be able to pursue. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I feel is sometimes people use things like QR codes, or even
Hmm.
let's take Navilens. And you just aren't always aware of the fact that it's there or that it's available, which is, can be frustrating. I wish that there was, like I mentioned before, a way that you could find out, you get like a little notification, oh, this place has an accessible map with this app or that app,
Yeah.
something like that, because
Yeah.
just being aware of what's available is hard.
I agree, and I think that really limits the potential a lot in this area. Because yeah, like you said, if you don't know it's there, then you don't think to check, and then it just
Mhm.
nobody uses it, and it just kind of
Yes.
becomes just a big mess. So yeah, I think things that are able to like automatically notify you and just build the expectation that like there's a good chance that this might be available where I'm going are going to be really going to change the game. I think.
Now, with the emergence of AI, have you been able
Yeah.
to use that in some way to improve the experience, or how can you harness that? Is there
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, of course. Like, we have some things. I'll talk about some of the ideas we have. We're definitely working on it quite a bit. So, one aspect is the mapping system. So, the idea that you can kind of create this visual spatial map by moving your phone around. So, it's not like large language models, but there is a lot of
Mhm.
other kind of work where,
Yes.
um, you know, there's really advanced models that will let you like more quickly map a space more accurately. So that's one thing we've been looking into. The other thing, which I think is really interesting, is giving more context about the routes that people are navigating, either in real time or as a preparation tool for visiting a space. The way we design Clew in our apps is very like geometry based. It's like how far is the route, how far is each like point along the route, and what are the turns, those sorts of things. But starting to use AI to give information about, is it carpeted or not, or where are the walls, what kind of obstacles are around you, those sorts of things. Not with the idea that it should be something that like replaces any other skills people have in terms of like using their cane and other O&M skills, but just giving a little bit more kind of context. And so I think that's where the AI tools will come in really handy in this environment, is providing additional context so that people can kind of pick and choose. It's like, you don't always need an app or like, have your camera out to like know where you're going. A lot of times just having good like directions is enough. So that's the one I'm most excited about and one we've been working with the most, especially with like some of the newer models coming out. Like it seems like it's starting to get within reach of what you can do. So
That sounds pretty cool. It would be even cooler too is if you could do virtual maps, like where you
yeah,
could sit at home and kind of prepare, like, oh, where can I go? Oh, okay, so I have to walk straight, then turn left to get there, and then
yeah,
right, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, I think that is like such a great idea and such a great way to go because there's been research they've done where they show that if you do this kind of like at home preparation, then your success navigating in the environment, even without any technology at all, like when you're actually in the
Yes,
environment, is like really enhanced. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I think so that's a great one.
Yeah. Now, Paul, I have to
Yes.
ask.
Okay.
I know I've asked this before.
Oh yeah, when's it going to come to Android?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, so this is where I can
he knew exactly what I
I
was
knew where
thinking
you're
about.
going. Okay, so this is another thing what I'd say is like as we're getting more resources, this is one of the big things. So I have to say for the first time this summer, we are really looking into laying the groundwork for this type of thing. So we're doing a lot of work with Unity this summer, which is a tool that will allow us to be cross-platform more easily. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I think I'll just put this under the umbrella of this is something that I'm hoping as we bring more resources into the project and I don't know, I guess I'll call it like professionalize it or something, if maybe that makes sense. I think there'll be a high priority because I'm seeing a lot more people on Android these days, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Because yeah, so like I said, this is I'm at Olin College. It's a small college. We work with students over the summer on kind of it's kind of they have a limited time to work on it. So sometimes it's just the resources we have. Those are my excuses at least. But yeah, you heard them all before, Carrie. So
Yes, I have.
here's another round. Yeah. But I do think it's important, and I do think the next phase will include cross-platform.
And I'll save my breath. I know you know all my thoughts on the matter, so
I
I
know.
had to share that for all my fellow Android users
All
out
right.
there, though.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, we're working on it slowly, but yeah, there we do have real plans as more resources come to the project. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. How do you develop and design with the blind and visually impaired community?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of working with the community, we have done a bunch of things. So we started off with having people who are in the local area come and work with us over the summer, and they would sort of give ideas for apps that we might develop, give feedback, kind of help us iterate on them. Over time, we moved to a bit different model where instead of having people come to give feedback, we also had people working on the team who are blind and visually impaired. So we've had a lot of different computer science students work on the apps directly, which has been really crucial for I think some of our success. And then based on what you've participated in our sort of summer programs, where we've had people from all over the world kind of participate in sort of online communities and try out systems, give us feedback, and that's been really amazing because we can kind of work with like a much more like geographically diverse and diverse in other aspects too group of people. And so that's been awesome. And then, like I mentioned before, the people who lead that program are also blind or visually impaired as well. So we try to embed sort of the community at all levels of the project, from the implementation to the organization to the co-design to the testing, all these things. There's opportunities at all levels. So I think that's been really key to our approach is not just having like one touch point, but like basically touch points throughout the whole project development lifecycle.
I love it because usually it's already hard enough to get companies and organizations to have actual community members involved, and now you have it in like all the different layers, and that's really great. And I especially participating in the co-design program, it was really cool to see the feedback that I would specifically share and others would specifically share be addressed in like the next test flights, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Uh,
that is a really cool experience."
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
you enjoyed it. Yeah, it was been really fun for us as well. And yeah, like I really think it just, I don't know, like I didn't have a lot of experience in kind of human-centered design when I started working in this area like 10 years ago. But, as we've improved our kind of processes, I think it's really just completely transformed like what we're able to do. So, I think it's just like really the only way to go, honestly. Like I think everybody should be doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. Something I've been asking for everybody on the podcast is, what do you think contributes to assistive technology, access technology being so expensive?
Oh, that's a great question. The standard answer is this is a small market, and then the tech has a lot of like fixed costs, so it's going to be expensive. I think there's ways around that personally. That's what I've been like learning from this program we've been in. I do think there's a lot of like R&D that's needed to make good assistive technology, and I think of course that's a big barrier, but I think there are ways to like get that paid for that don't involve charging the end user. So, for instance, like in my work, we've done a lot of work under the banner of like Olin College as a nonprofit. We can access grant funding. I also think there's other like partnerships that we can create to kind of like offset some of that R&D cost. And so, yeah, I mean, I know it's a difficult puzzle, so I'm not trying to sort of knock anybody else working in this area because I do know it's a challenging puzzle. But I guess I'm hopeful that there's ways to find alignment with different organizations, different grant possibilities to, bring in the resources without having to like make things super expensive for the end user. So I don't know. I think it's a puzzle, but like an interesting one, and I think one that like can be solved and like honestly like must be solved, because I think the current like way that things work is just creates a lot of barriers and makes it so there's, maybe like a small group of people who can afford some of these solutions, and when really they could be benefiting a much wider group of people. So I don't know, at least from where I'm standing, like in kind of our area, that's kind of how I'm seeing it, is like needing to be more creative about ways to interface with the community and different resources.
Gotcha. Now here's an easier question. What are
Okay.
you
Yeah, thanks.
what are you most excited about when it comes to Navishare, or whatever name you end up giving it, or your project?
Yeah, I will say I'm working with like an awesome team. So one thing I've teamed up with another Olin professor, Sam Maholka. So I'm really excited that we're working together. I've also been working with Shane Lowe, who,
Yay, Jane!
yeah, so Shane is so great. So we didn't talk too much about some of the
Mhm.
human-centered design stuff we did over the summer, but Shane's been one of the driving forces behind that program. And so he's also involved with this program that we're doing with the National Science Foundation. And then we have some students also. So I think that team is really exciting. And then I think just being able to sort of, take the contacts and people we've worked with in the blind and visually impaired community, and then say like, all right, like let's think about the next kind of layer. Like what are the organizations that we could work with? What are the ways we could start to scale this up from a technology that's used, primarily just by individuals without a lot of like support for it, to something that's more integrated into different like organizations that like commissions I mentioned for the blind, those types of things. So I think that's where a really big opportunity is. And I just think it's going to be really fun kind of mapping that and understanding it and figuring out if that's the way we can like bring a really great like mobility technology to people that doesn't cost a huge amount of money. And I think solving that is what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. And now, what about access technology in general, or even
Oh
just
yeah,
technology in general? What are you
yeah,
most excited about that?
that's a good question. I mean, of course, like the AI stuff is like very exciting. I think a lot of people who work in the space are really excited. I think, yeah, I think really like partnerships. I think learning from community partners is something that I think is really going to be driving a lot of the work going forward. So, working with different organizations, like I was mentioning, like different commissions for the blind, really understanding how we can like work in ways that like enhance the work that they do. Because I think technology is, part of the solution to problems, but often maybe a small component. So I think that's something that's just generally pretty exciting. I keep going back to like our technology, but yeah, I think generally just like more kind of coordination between different sectors is like where a lot of the opportunities are. So I've been noticing in like the National Science Foundation, a lot of the calls for grants and the like are really highlighting the need to have these like academic, nonprofit, industry kind of partnerships. And so I think a lot of really like creative work will come out of those kinds of groups that are kind of cross-cutting across those different sectors.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today, Paul. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and all of us today. How can people stay connected or stay up
Sure.
to date with what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm very happy to have people email me directly. So my email is pruv as in Victor OLO at olin.edu. Maybe that can also be posted with like the show notes, and people are happy
Yes.
to email me. And so, yeah, so in terms of, we could talk about ideas for the app. We do have a beta test of the app if you're interested in trying it out. And if you're interested in talking to us for this program that we're participating in, to understand, how our technology could, create value in the world, if you have some thoughts about that, we'd also be really excited to talk to you as well. So yeah, just send me a note. I'm here and willing and excited to engage with folks.
Well, again, thanks so much, Paul. And there you have it. That's the interview. I really enjoyed this conversation with Paul. I love the idea that this is free for the end user. And second, and maybe even more importantly, the fact that this is something that I think can scale much better than the other solutions that are currently available. I mentioned it during the interview. Things like Good Maps right here, Lazarillo, they depend solely on the business. There's a sense of more trust and accuracy, but often these things are not updated, and that can be very frustrating, and they're not implemented in a lot of places. It's so limited. I often wish there was some way that I can find out all the different locations that have been mapped already. I would love a directory, or even better if it was integrated into Google Maps, they now have wheelchair accessibility information. What about audio described content? What about just apps for indoor navigation like this? It's only listed in the apps like Lazarillo and Good Maps. I find that very frustrating. Plus, I live in an area where there's not all that much close by, and the places that I want to go to are not mapped. So many people don't know about the accessible solutions that already exist. Having a place where users can be in charge and users can make their own maps, whether they be private, whether they be something that you share, and you don't have to do all the work again. You can just share it out and people can build on it. People can make comments or something like that. That would be really amazing. I really like this project and I love the dedication and all the effort they're putting into it. I hope and wish all the best for Paul and his team. Like I mentioned in the interview, I've done co-designing with them. It was a great experience to work with students. I think it's a great move to make it just more than just summer programs, put more resources into it. But my concern is that this, while it has a better chance of scaling, I don't know how much it will scale. Imagine if a company like Google took this upon themselves and they integrated it into Google Maps. So many more people would know and be able to use that. And then you will be able to search it up on Google and find accessible places and navigate there. And once you're there, maybe there's a button, navigate the indoor space. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Google I/O, they had this indoor kind of mapping already from Google. They had a project years and years ago to do something similar, but they dropped it. But now with AI, I think it would be easier technically. It's a constant struggle because I have heard some people talk about the cane and guide dogs and that it is sufficient. And, we make do. We can find our own accommodations. We can find our own ways. We can do it independently. But there are still so many things that it's a challenge. It's a struggle. We have to do a lot more planning. We have more limited resources. And it's frustration every time that I'm out that I don't have access to as much information as so many other people do. I don't know if the answer is AI. I think that's part of the answer, but I'm hopeful. I prefer to be optimistic about tech, and I hope that somehow accessibility can move forward, technology can move forward, so that we can just go wherever we want to go and experience all the things that everybody else experiences. That's my hope, and that's what I wish it could be like. I want to just get up and go out and find all the different attractions. I want to be able to go to the fair and not feel so lost trying to navigate this space. So I guess, like I always say, I think in every episode, let's see what the future holds, and hopefully it holds something positive. What do you all think? Let me know your thoughts, your insights in the comments, share in the discussion, and maybe we can help find a solution together. So that's it for this video. If you like this content and found it interesting, hit that thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support my work on this channel, consider becoming a YouTube or Patreon member, or even just sharing this video. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.